I'm just going to show you really quick the tools that I use to bake sourdough bread. And I'll just start off, we'll just go through what I've got here. I've got links in the description for everything that I'm talking about, for the ones that I can find at least at this point. And then I'll just go through with you and just tell you why I've chosen the tools that I have and how they're working out for me. Okay, so first off is the Graniteware baking pan. It's an oval 13-inch pan, very lightweight, has a lid, and I keep parchment paper in here, and I use that. I just reuse this over and over until it needs to be replaced. And I use this to bake my oval loaves of bread, which is primarily the bread that I do bake. So I find that this is easier because it is lightweight and it does not need to be preheated. If you're using a Dutch oven, an enamel Dutch oven, you're going to have to preheat that, pull that out, drop your bread in, don't burn yourself, and get it covered and get it back into the oven. So this is much easier for me because I can just put my bread right in here, have my oven preheated, and then just slide this right in. I've found that these pans give me a nice oven spring and work really well and are affordable. I use a stainless steel bowl. This one is a 4-quart endurance stainless steel. I've had this bowl for at least, I would say maybe 14 years, and it has held up really nice. It's a beautiful bowl. RSVP makes really good stainless steel bowls. I use that to mix my flour, yeast, salt, and water in and get my ball started for my bread. I use a simple Rubbermaid. This is a 3.7 liter. It's just a plain old plastic bowl, and I've got 2 of them. And I just use this to proof my bread in, let it rise in. If you want to see how I'm doing this, you can just watch the video baking bread from start to finish. I also use a thermometer in my oven because I really like to know what the temperature is. This one has gotten so old that I did just buy a new one. So I ordered one on Amazon, and it's the same brand as this one. This one I've had for a very, very long time. I'm looking forward to popping this one in. I am going to put both in the oven at the same time, preheat the oven up, and see if they're the same. This way I'll know if there's a difference between the two, what the correct temperature I need to be looking for on this gauge would be. Normally when I bake my bread, I set the oven to about 465 Fahrenheit. You'll learn over time whether or not what your thermometer needs to read for your bread to be baking correctly. Next up is a digital scale, and I like this brand. It's EK City. I bought this right around 2020, and it has held up perfectly. It takes 3 AAA batteries. I hardly ever have to change the batteries in this too. It's a really nice scale. It has a place for millimeters, for milk, water, ounces, pound ounces, fluid ounces, and gram. Very nice. I like it. I can tar it really easily, and it works great for me. So happy with this. I use this an awful lot. This is what I use for scoring the dough. If I had to choose again, I might get the one with the handle, and I'll put a link in there for one that looks pretty popular. This one, I've developed a little system to keep me from cutting myself, so it's a very sharp razor in there. I got this on Etsy 3 or 4 years ago, and you just turn it, and then you would reach in and try to grab the tip of the razor to pull it out. So what I've done is I just use a piece of masking tape, and I keep it covered, and then I just pull that off, tighten this up, and I use this to score the bread, right? But when I want to put it back in, I just take my little piece of masking tape. You just want to put the tape on the tip here, like that, okay? Try not to cut yourself. And then just slide it in like that, and then just tighten it down. A dough whisk. So I really like this. I got this on Amazon as well. I'll put a link in there for everything. But this makes it really easy to go ahead and get your dough started when you first start stirring it up, because it's got all of these holes that the dough and the flour and water can go through. Highly recommend that. That's a big help. And it came with the bench scraper too. So this is really nice if you just want to scrape up and get your dough off of your counter. Normally I do it on my quartz counter, and I put my wooden cutting board off to the side when I'm working right here. Bench scraper is really good. The Banneton basket, I just happen to have a plastic bag that I can keep it in. They come with these cotton liners that you can put in, and you can set your dough in here. But I find I prefer to just have my bread have the ridges from all of this here. I just use rice flour, and I go ahead and sprinkle this with some rice flour, and I don't use this, but it does come with one. You can also use it to cover if you are wanting to proof your bread that way and just keep it covered so that it doesn't dry out when it's rising in here. That's also, you could use it for that, but I don't. I use the plastic bag, so I put it all in here, just keep it kind of loosely tied, and I let the dough proof in here. So, and then the last thing is this snap ball tea strainer that I use for the rice flour. I find this works out really well. It's great for just dusting over in the Banneton basket. Works great. Can keep this sealed up so it stays fresh in here, and can use that whenever I need it. There's a couple of other things that you'll see in the video. When I bake a loaf of bread, you will see a baking stone that I have in the oven. Another thing that you're going to need is probably a cooling rack. So just a plain cooling rack. You can buy these pretty much anywhere. This is great just to cool your bread on when it comes out of the oven. And then the final thing is, this is the Comfy Life unbleached nonstick parchment paper that comes in 120 sheets. This is really nice if you have these Nordic ware, which I really like these. These are made in the USA, one of the few things that are. This Nordic ware pan, so these sheets fit in here perfectly. So if you do any kind of baking, even this has nothing to do with bread baking, say you are just baking cookies, this is perfect. This just fits right in here very nicely. You don't have any rolling or all the problems that you have when you use parchment paper that comes in a roll. So, highly recommend the flat sheets. They're great. They come in a couple of different sizes too. But I like this one here. This works out really well, and it'll last you forever. Just buy it one time. You got 120 sheets. So that covers the tools that I'm using when I'm baking my sourdough bread. I hope this at least explains my process, so that if you want to get some of these, there'll be links in the description for everything. You can go check them out. If you're interested in the baking stone, I put a link in there for the site that sells those. They're pretty expensive, but you just have to buy it one time. They're great for making pizza on as well. I like the baking stone. If you want to see how to bake bread from start to finish, there'll be a link in the description. I will see you in the next one.